for winter weather equipment. So both crews took several days off to get each truck ready for impending winter weather, and then they're reviewed. It's not just kind of a self thing. We have people from our equipment shop in Salem come up and actually go through a fresh set of eyes on each piece of equipment with a checklist and noting anything that needs to be done. A lot of things are we're having issues just like everybody else with getting parts and everything like that. So but all that's inventoried, and we'll get everything ready for things as soon as we can. Although it's going to be nice today, we have had a bit of cold weather, so we don't know what's coming. We're currently working on getting the next switching back to construction, the next construction project ready, and we've got a mix of. We're going to try to do one next year with our crew, like we did Roger Road. That helps us out in a couple different ways. Allows our crew to charge to the construction budget, and also lets us work a little bit more flexible with the residents. But we don't like to do it. It's a lot of work. It takes us away from our maintenance activities too much. So it's got to be a smaller, mid-sized project for our crews to do. So we're not spending all summer long building a road and neglecting the main street because it's the same crew. So that's where we are on that. We hope to get one next year as well, and we'll have the public hearing. I think we've been here in March or April, I think. So I'll be getting back with you after the new year to schedule a public hearing. So that's all.
Good. And especially with the new member coming on, could we maybe set up a time where we do a ride around like we did before? Just to, I think it helps. We can come here and we can say this spot right here, and you get a good idea. But to see what we actually see, I think it's helped me in the back.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. It's always time well spent getting around and seeing.
Absolutely.
Sometime after the first of the year, and
yep.
We'll let you know which roads we're going to ride on. That way you can get your snow crews.
Right, yeah, we'll get all the pictures looking good and everything. Okay, I'll make a note of that. That's all I have as far as maintenance updates.
It'd be a good time if we don't get together on D-Horts, that we ride through D-Horts.
Yeah.
She reached out to me again the other day, we were still there, and I said, we're on the way, just be patient.
They've been waiting all the time.
Yeah, that's what she said.
That's what I was saying.
She's doing that real nice.
Any board requests this month?
Yeah, so thanks for plowing away on the Memorial Highways. I appreciate that. Just as a date, we were nearing the completion of that. The rest of the board say thank you for your diligence, Mr. Clark. I do appreciate that. I did have one request that immediately failed to mention at our last meeting, and I apologize to that community. However, there has been a request made to me for a speed study to be done on Mount Elbert Road. That due to the increased traffic with the nursery and also a local farm that is anticipating a small family orchard and nursery production. So I think they're already having difficulties getting equipment across the road, and due to the green facility as well on the road, there's a lot of, in that little subdivision, there are a lot of folks walking their dogs. So I would like to request that you guys could do that to see if that is still within the parameters of the speed of what it needs to be. It's an unposted road, so
The entire length of it?
we'll know what that means, at least through, the residential portion.
Drops.
Yeah, and there's no other intersections past Terman and Markham that I can,
Not really.
no, not till you get to the end of High Hopes and the nursery. So I would think it would be reasonable.
Okay.
So the top of the roof.
Yeah, pretty much. It does get a lot of traffic, so we could consider that. And I just wanted to also mention where the contractor crew that came through doing the line, I forgot, it's leaving my mind. On water, I probably mentioned it from Copper Valley, Indian Valley Road. That, the way that is sloped is still pushing debris out into the road there. I'm not sure if your permitting gentleman had a chance to go out there and review that. The dirt is right where they sloped that back when they put the utility line. That's what I was looking for. When they put the utility underground, that bank is right, in some places touching the white line. So it is pushing the water out into the road, and there's a culvert there before the resident's house, and it's not quite making it there. And I fear some moisture in winter, and it's already on a steep downslope. Somebody gets that, and there's 2 houses right there that somebody could at least find themselves in their yard. God forbid worse. So maybe that culvert needs to be cleaned out, and that slope on that bank needs to be looked at, in my opinion. But submit that to you. And also I mentioned that you guys took care of it a while back. The same kind of thing happens on Indian Valley Road up from White Rock going towards Montgomery County line. The water runs across the road, and there was a culvert there. It's probably a quarter of a mile up from the White Rock Indian Valley Road intersection again going towards Montgomery County. You guys cleaned out that ditch and stopped it, and that was great. It's in a curve, and it would ice over, and then the other alternative is Indian Creek. So, but I think that ditch is filling in again. So maybe if we could look at that, keep that water off the roadway right there. It is in a turning portion of the travel part of the highway. So that's all I have. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank your crews for the work they've done. I know they've been out, like you said, cutting brush, doing milling road, doing everything they can. Gonna mention the shoulders on Route 8 again. That's a normal thing. They're only gonna get worse with bad weather coming. So, you mentioned Thunderstruck, and I had somebody mention something to me about that too. Now I know there's some places that you actually put riprap, but you have to get with the water authority or somebody else before you can actually shore up the banks of the road, don't you?
Correctly, yes.
The Army Corps of Engineers or
Especially
somebody.
a stream, yeah.
Well, they can fix it, but they gotta go through the process, just like anybody else, I guess. There's a few places there that maybe when they're in our riding around, we can take a real close look and put on but I'm afraid you're gonna keep going. If they keep eroding, then you're not gonna have a road in some of those curves. Also, where 730 meets Route 8, I mentioned this a good while back. The water, it runs down by any ditching there along that guardrail on 730, is filled completely up. It washes gravel out into the road, but this winter, it's gonna wash water into there that's gonna freeze, and somebody's gonna come down the hill. They're not gonna stop. They're gonna go right out into traffic. So I would put that for me as on way high on the priority before that road sets in, to look at that and see if we can get that water over the bank versus running out into the road there.
To your point, real quick, actually, it's hard to stop when it washes out on the gravel. You know it's like marbles. You're going down here and try to stop, you just slide.
Yeah.
So,
And the speed's already reduced there, it's 35, so, even with that, it's still very dangerous there. And I apologize, I haven't been out there, but I'll mention it, I didn't get out there, but, there was some, shoulder work still remaining on Gallimore Lane that needed to be done, and, down at the end of the road, it needed to be cut out so it would go into the culvert instead of running around the road and across the person's driveway. Now, they may have already taken care of it, but could you just double check?
Yeah.
And also out here on Fox, I apologize, I didn't get out there, but where that was damaged, that sometime before winter needs to, unfortunately. The rebar is exposed on it, so. And while we're in that direction, there's there's still a sunk in place there on 10 Avenue. It's where that hole developed in the culvert under the road. Now, they finally did get it to fill up, but it's starting to sink back down. That culvert's going to be dug out and redone sometime. And I know you've got that all over the county, so, you know, I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. Trying to think. That's enough for now. At least I didn't mention the bridge. I didn't mention the bridge this time. That'll be for another day, but.
For February, March, and things are slow.
Yeah, things are slow in February, March, yeah. But no, and I know it sounds like I'm complaining and whatever, but people contact me, as the old saying goes, it runs downhill. But I do appreciate you and all the workers. I mean, y'all are doing everything you can. Hopefully we'll see some changes in Richmond that will affect your area and actually help.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
On that note, I will say that, you continue to put the rock uphill with so many projects and not enough people to do them. So I really want to start my comments by saying how much we appreciate all of the work of our local VDOT employees and everything that they do and how hard they work. I did want to mention again, I didn't hear you mention Harvestwood or Red Oak Grove. Those are two roads that are in pretty bad shape. They really do need to be looked at. Please have somebody, especially Harvestwood, go out and check that one. There's been a lot of wash. Do you see anything on your list?
So I didn't mention everyone that was on here, I do not see that.
Yeah, and Red Oak Grove is just perennially just kind of falling apart. So I don't know, I'd really like somebody to go out there, maybe Darryl and Ronald together or whoever, to just look at it and try and ascertain it. I think there's, water issues there that probably should be better diverted or however to help keep that road safe. I do greatly appreciate, I did come upon them fixing 615. I had no idea that culvert was as clogged as it was. And Ronald and I were talking, and he said that the water had pooled up so that, people were hitting deer right in that area. And I mean, they hang there. I mean, I see it all the time, morning, noon, night, no matter what. And they were going for water because it was right there, it pooled up. Now I asked him if he thought that would help with the other area that comes out of that house that's right there as you enter into the curve, or as you're in that curve where the water comes out. Again, a similar situation to what Justin talked about, how if it rains and then we get that drop in temperature, that really does become an ice skating rink. A couple of times people have literally slipped right there. So hopefully the work they did yesterday, I went Route 8 in today, so I didn't see it completed, but that was quite an extensive clean out of that. And that pipe looks really old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an old concrete one. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that we need to replace it if it's still going to work, but, people are going to put driveways in where they put driveways in, and if VDOT gives them the go-ahead to put the driveway there, then, it becomes a road almost like, which is what Grandma's Place did, and it's right there, and I don't know if some sort of a study needs to be done. Other than that, I think that's about it. Most of the roads that I've been traveling through the district are in relatively good shape. There is though a cavernous hole somewhere on Moore Road, and I fell into it just above Spanglerville Road to the east. I guess Moore Road's running east and west at that point. Anyway, it's above Spangler Mill, so just look at that. It's not the one that we got fixed earlier, but it's sort of in the middle of the road.
Okay.
And then there's another one too. But I can't remember. Maybe I'll remember by the time Lauren's finished. But again, thanks to the workers. They're doing their best. And I heard VDOT's going to have a lot of, Ronald was talking shop too, while we were kind of watching the backhoe, and one of your contractors that helped with the interstate has gone out of business. So
Yeah.
it's gonna put a real, yeah. You're scrambling, I know.
Yeah, we're trying to latch on to other contracts throughout the state. It's not just the Salem district thing, it's statewide and multi-statewide. This company is in lots of states.
Yeah.
I'll give you say water. So,
Thank
sometimes
you.
they're in Floyd. It comes out and say water. I don't have a whole lot. First of all, I just want to say thank you on 221 and Franklin Pike. They did some ground road down and repaved it, and it's really nice. Great work there. I'm really hoping, I had mentioned before that I have a request for new lines on Franklin Pike out close to the Parkway on that end, and where they did that work, I'm really hoping maybe that you'll have some lines come in after that. They were particularly, that section of the road had, at one time anyway, had the center lines but didn't have any side lines. And the sidelines really helped them in the fog out there. It was, Floyd was telling me that was what they were really hoping for, so hopefully with the new pavement there, they'll do that. The only other thing I had was, I had a request on Jerry Lane, which is a dead end road in my district, on a speed study, and wasn't able to get out there, but I almost think maybe it's already reduced speed, and maybe, the signs aren't up, or something in my mind tells me at one time that was, that had, signs on it for 35 maybe.
Is that paved or?
It's paved for the most part, yeah. It comes off King Store Road, but there's a lot of houses up there. A gentleman called me, had some trouble with his pets being run over, that people were flying 55 up and down the road. One of them dodged the school bus. A lot of kids were being, there's just a bunch of issues that, with speed, so.
I'll check to see if it's ever been.
I almost think if it has, maybe there needs to be some more signage, and if not, if you could look into doing speed study, because there's been a lot of houses built up there recently.
Yeah,
And
I just can't see how you can go 55. I mean, to
he said
think,
they were really good at fast enough, they couldn't stop the school.
Fine, like,
I mean, from King Store to the end, it's not that far.
That's a mile through there.
I mean, I guess it is a mile.
3/4 mile.
Yeah, I guess so.
All it takes is a couple people
Yeah.
to, the whole community's worked up about it, evidently, so. Cause a little, it's a community ruckus, yes.
Ruckus.
So maybe a couple signs, and if the signs go up, then maybe state police or something can really drive through a little time, so I won't say that. Yeah, thanks for being patient on me on the 6-year road plan.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can meet up and
We'll figure it out.
thank you. Still cutting my crazy stuff.
Great problem to have.
I'm done.
Start off with thanking you for all the road work and gravel you done in my area. Really don't have anything other than people still complaining about that bridge there at Gordon Road. And I told them that,
Keep asking about it, it's getting a little late to fix it, but I'll
yeah,
ask.
that's what I told them. I
They said they were planning on doing it, but I don't know when they're gonna be able to do it.
yeah, I told them, I said, so late a year and that asphalt, it ain't gonna do no good.
Right.
You're just gonna have to live with it.
I'll ask again if they plan on coming back.
I hit my wood chipper the other day, and that was my fault, and I thought that thing was gonna go all the way off. I've been having to go through it, that road from, Firehouse over to, Merrifield. Are they finished that bridge area yet? You're just replacing culverts?
Yeah, I can't remember, I don't know, I'll check.
And go through it, but I appreciate y'all doing that. Like I say, I appreciate the machine work and the gravel and the ditching that you've done in my area. You know, there's still a lot more to do.
Yeah. Well, the list I see here has a lot of them over in the rural area.
Yeah. To get Grace Road as quick as you did.
They did, yeah, they did Ray Sugar Tree, Sawmill Hill, Myra Fork.
And Laura mentioned signage, made me think of it. We had some knucklehead go through the community up there last weekend. They got the signs there at the church, which VDOT's done put their sign back up. They haven't got the E911 back up yet on the front. And now Bones Mill, the speed sign. I don't think y'all were it yet, but it must have been pretty mad because they took the post and everything. I figured it's over the bank out there somewhere. I haven't had a chance to go look.
The speed sign at Vaughn's Mill and a 911 sign, where?
Right there at the intersection of Reese Road and, yeah, I turned that into Kevin.
Yeah, we work with.
That post there, they kept wiggling it till it just broke off even with the ground. The BOS sign, the stop sign must have been tougher, but the only thing it did was bend it over. But the speed sign, as you turn off Shady Grove onto Bones Mill, they just took the post and the sign and everything there.
Yeah, Vaughn's Mill is construction, and that, there's a little electrical there, he's posted to 35.
I started mentioning it to the sign crew when they was down below my house, and I thought, no, they looked like they was busy.
Sort of just one more thing. Did you want to update the board on the discussions with, I mean, I know this is so central into the middle of my district, but I was on a phone call with David and one engineer, two engineers?
Two guys from our traffic engineering, Brett Randolph, the district traffic engineer, and Michael Glass, who works for Brett.
Right. And we were discussing the industrialization of Shooting Creek and Franklin Pike and the idea of the four-way stop versus reduced speeds and such. And if you want to give a synopsis, I think it's important for everyone to know.
Absolutely, yeah, that's something that we discussed from the board before, the possibility of looking at that, so we had our traffic engineering look at that, and they don't put a four-way stop.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm so sorry.
You pause and we jump right in.
Gotta get my thoughts together sometime. But,
Let Joe finish.
Okay.
down Brandon Road and Brandon Adams Branch, Buckman Road, down through there. Just still talking about them big potholes and stuff down there. They're everywhere.
Bigger, dude.
Yeah, they'll get smaller on their own.
Some of them are connected.
Yeah, they're holding hands now.
Yeah.
People quit thinking.
But I do have one guy over there that's pretty upset because he's trying to fix them with his little bitty tractor, but we don't have enough to it to do it. But anyway, I appreciate all the work y'all doing.
All right, thank you very much. A little bit about the Franklin Pike and Shooting Creek. Traffic engineering looked at the possibility of a four-way stop there. There are certain warrants for four-way stops because that's a kind of a drastic change in traffic pattern that people aren't necessarily used to, and people drive by habit. So we thought probably the more prudent thing to do would be looking at a speed limit reduction on Shooting Creek. And that's where the biggest sight distance issue. So if you're coming from 221 on Shooting Creek, you come over that ridge there, and you don't have a lot of time before Franklin Pike. And our worry was that, again, people drive, even if you put rumble strips, if you put stop ahead signs, what we don't want is somebody barreling through and then somebody coming out of Franklin Pike assuming that person's going to stop or whatever. So we're going to look at a speed reduction first, all the way from 221 down to, and just past Franklin Pike, and some better visibility. Maybe some bigger signs, some more visible signs on the Franklin Pike side to try to highlight the kind of congested area, if you will, right there at those intersections. We did put one in Montgomery County, we did one in Bedford County recently. They go through a pretty rigorous study before doing that. And the one in Montgomery County is at Meadow Creek and Childress Road. And over the years, Childress Road was kind of the main road through there, and so the stop was on Meadow Creek. But as development's gone on over the last 30 whatever years, 20 years, actually the Meadow Creek way had more traffic on it.
Especially with the hospital.
Yeah, and I think that's what changed a lot of stuff. So it wasn't as big a deal to add the stop onto Childress because the legs of traffic were a lot more equal. And there's good sight distance there. Now, sometimes that's actually the problem. There's sometimes too much sight distance. People look and they go, "Nah, I can beat that car." And so you don't. All you can do is put up the signs and help people obey them. So that's the thing. But you want to give everybody the biggest opportunity to see the signs. So we're going to go with 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's kind of an intermediate step, and we'll keep a good eye on it and keep the option for a four-way stop open.
We also discussed 221 on Franklin Pike to that intersection as well with the curves. And has anything moved on that? Do they set up the speed studies or?
They haven't done a speed study. I think they will look at more curb warning signs on that part to make sure because they have a stop situation coming from that side, so they should be, not barreling down through there.
Right. So they do.
And again, all you
I
do is put signs and hold all day.
I know.
Kind of like crosswalk buttons.
Yeah, I know.
All you can do is put them
Put them
there.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're working on that one there at the Mexican Sonic Lodge.
Well, I was gonna,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you if you got any kind of schedule or anything yet.
Not a schedule yet. We've got to do some design, find the post. I think we can get solar
Good.
in there. I think there's probably enough sunlight. They're going to look at that. And we can use the current contract we have. So that's going to be good. Now we've got in terms of the type of post, we want one that's not going to obstruct too much in there. You also have drainage, drop inlets and pipes, so you have to.
Right.
So we have determined that it will not require any further concrete work as far as a pump out or anything like that.
Good.
We can just put those.
That creates problems too. with
Yes.
Some of the water.
Yes, it does. So we're moving forward on that.
Good. And y'all talking reminded me of several things, so. No, I got several. You were also looking into the siding situation possibly at Milestones, which
Yes.
I'm sure you're still into that.
Yes, I spoke to Angie yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we're working on getting on that side of the street, the main facility part of the street, to allow people to load and unload children, drop off, pick up children, but restrict parking during the day so that they're not using the crosswalk and coming out between cars.
Right.
So we've got some signs ordered for that. They're kind of a special sign. It's going to be, I think it's going to say 10-minute parking only from 7 to 6, something like that. Because she said that parents are in there all the time, from early morning to late evening and even during the day sometimes. So we're just going to go ahead and restrict parking to 10 minutes, which basically allows them to load and unload. And then we're also looking at Route 8 coming north into town and kind of what can be done there. We've discussed a lot of things that our traffic engineer that are probably outside of any kind of funding mechanism we have other than like a smart scale application process. So we're going to try to look at something like either bigger signs. I'm going to look at one that they did in Pulaski County near the high school, which is a lighted sign, but that was a permitted sign installation. VDOT didn't do it, the county did it under permit, or the school system did it under permit, and that's a possibility. So we're looking at a couple things there. Again, it's the same kind of situation. You put the signs up, just help people obey them.
The other thing is Crossroads, Woods Cap and Baker, where you go up to the high school. All 200 or 300 feet up the road there. last I saw, they still hadn't replaced that 25-mile-an-hour sign that got stolen. And I also noticed on Route 8 coming into town in front of the brewery, the 35-mile-an-hour sign, I don't know if it got hit or dropped it off or whatever, it was on a wooden post, but it's now leaned up against a tree. But at least we can still see it. But those two speed signs really need to be, when you can get to it, put back up.
Okay.
And that's all I promise you. He's coming.
Second round through.
And this one may have resolved itself, and I failed to notice this morning, but I was thinking about it for, you guys, and your sake. South on Route 8 at Parkview, it looks like there's been a spill of concrete, in the travel portion of the highway. And should a plow hit that, I feel like the driver's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you hit it in a vehicle,
Where's that?
South on Route 8 at Parkview.
At the red part.
Yeah, it's several splatters and they're pretty big, but they do get smaller the further south you get. So I don't know if you can chill it up or what, but
It's interesting you bring that up. I mean, not interesting to you, but we got the same issue going on in Montgomery County, Blacksburg right now, with concrete.
yeah, I mean, I would hate to assume where that may have come from, the proximity, but nonetheless, it's going to wake somebody up or tear something up. So,
I didn't notice it till today when I went through.
well, I didn't either, but that was,
Might have loaded a little bit too big.
Yeah, well, they're not wiping, they're not spraying with the water with
and
it.
they may have, on your way out, you should see it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, that's what it is.
Thank you.
All right.
Still here?
Should I get out before you
Yeah.
Did I have anything? Was that an invite? I did have two things, if you don't mind. One was a very positive thing, which will also be news to you. We've been looking for a letter from VDOT to assist us with an ARC grant. And related to the Commerce Park. And that letter came yesterday. And so I wanted to point out that was taken care of, and that was also kind of an uphill battle, so thank you, David, for, again, I think the term was pushing the rock up the hill. So I wanted to, while you were here, make sure I told you all about that, and thank you for that. And then, I have been told that the road into the rec park is a VDOT road.
Oh, boy.
So,
Anyway.
everything on the list, but
What's the problem?
there's two really nice potholes, so if it is a VDOT road, that would be nice, and if it's not, then let me know, and we'll throw some stuff in there. We were out walking around yesterday and realized it, and it's...
I can't see because of the mask, but my eyes are doing this.
Whoever it is, I recognize it's something that needs to be improved.
There's a number on it, but there's still some debate on how that number got there.
Well, let me know, and then we'll, if you don't throw something in there, we'll...
No, don't look at me.
Well, we always do when it's that kind of thing.
I was part of the crew that was told it was, but he's part of the crew that's told it wasn't, so.
There's a number.
Sometimes I'm opinion, just because some guy accused of unwritten tells me it's not, doesn't mean that it's not.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, thank you. Didn't mean to create anything, but we were out checking out some things at the park yesterday.
I
And
don't
I watched
think
someone just about lose a hubcap, and
I don't think it was ever an official in writing thing, but there was an verbal understanding at the time, and that's where the problem lies. We just got
My business, verbal, after a while, becomes,
Yeah, absolutely. And it shouldn't be too hard to get it all right administratively.
yeah,
It's just a matter of doing it.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we can add there under the 6-year road plan, get pothole fixed and get it put in the system all at the same time.
There you go. Whatever you do.
His face turned another shade of color.
Yeah,
The boy, them eyes is really going back and forth. I'm just picking at you.
Sure, they would come with something else.
I think we can figure something out, because, with where it first came in was when we were originally wanting to put a gate up, because we was talking about closing the park at 10 o'clock at night. And that's when we were told that yes, we could, but it couldn't be closed until 10 o'clock, and it had to be open like at 6 o'clock in the morning, because it was a public. And that's where all that verbal stuff came in during that conversation.
Just put a white line down there and we'll get half of it.
It's on the side, don't have.
That's a good one.
Thank you, David. I'll follow up with you. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
all.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, sir. That was a good one to end on.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a part question, if that would be, maybe appropriate to ask right now. The sign that's on the big commercial sign that's on the park property. At one point there was an agreement. I'm just wondering if that agreement has run out yet, or it has changed, has been addressed since we took control of the park.
Oh, the advertisement
Yes.
out there? So that is something that is in process. In terms of getting, yeah, apparently there was some previous advice about not asking businesses for money during COVID. And certainly understand that, but I have encouraged our recreation director that given the county's budget, it would be great to see if there's some folks that would like to contribute and get some things in response to that.
I think that's what that's not what he's
You're not talking about like the Mickey D sign and that kind of stuff?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about the one that's on Route 8. There is a big sign for one of the businesses up Park View that's on Route 8. That was, originally there was an agreement for, I just had to think about driving by the other day. It was, when I was on the rec board, there was quite the discussion on it. And they had some type of agreement that I think I was opposed to, I can't remember, but anyway. For a number of years, they were allowed to put a sign there. But it still is there.
And when they run out, it was.
And with the change in, our ownership, it certainly struck me that having a big sign there, maybe another business up there would come and say, well, you let them do it, It's something that we need to be thinking about that. So that's
I can't give you some of the original from that. In the original things, there was not to be some of what's up there.
Well, that had to do with the trade, I think, too.
Well, that had to do with one director doing something.
Right.
Some of it had happened before the board knew it had happened.
happened.
Anyway, it might be something for you to kind of look into, because I drove by the other day and I just happened to think about it, and my concern at the time was if you let one person put it on public property, then
And you don't have.
without a fee, then everybody can do it.
And also, I don't think it's good to have that right there myself.
I don't know that,
Signs on the fence is one thing, but
I completely agree. Anyway, it's right there, if you sitting in Family Dollar, it's right across the road.
I'll make, when I make my next trip up there, I will.
Just,
check it out.
think about, I don't know if there is even an agreement in place since we.
Yeah,
I don't think that's part of what we should be doing there. A sign, a 4-day sign on the fence is one thing.
Right.
But some of the.
And it's open for anyone to be able to purchase.
Anybody can those.
Yeah.
But some of the other stuff, we need to look at, see what kind of deadlines and stuff, and I mean, I wanna honor, when we took over, we honor whatever agreements.
I think it was a 5-year agreement, which is probably about run out.
When those agreements run out, I really think we need, whoever's sitting here needs to take a long, hard look at doing that kind of thing going forward.
I think that one in particular, because it's visible to everybody, not just the ones that go.
Not just the ones, but that one in particular, but I'm a little concerned about the others as well.
Anyway, just.
It's nothing, I'm not grateful for the contribution, I don't mean that, it's just,
No, that was all that you used, right?
looks like you're treating some different than others. And
Yep.
we've only got so much room, we can only put up so much signage, and I'd rather take signs down than I had to fill up what little we have left.
Right. Okay.
And that would be more in line with the original intent too. But,
Definitely.
and that's my 2 cents, and $1.25 get you half a cup of coffee.
Used to be 50 cents.
I think we can move on down to, you know, get 9B.
We can do that, Mr. Chair, or if you'd like, just so I don't forget, if you wanted to circle back to the other sheet of disbursements.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the reason we took a break. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, that's why, because next time it'll be me that forgets about it, so, I'll go ahead and let Kim give you the report.
The two explanations are what Linda mentioned earlier with regards to the first line item. It is the lease of the Tahoe, and the second is the lease with regards to the sheriff's vehicles.
Sheriff's vehicles.
Or vehicles, just one or two.
I believe two.
Huh,
The first one is the Tahoe, which is here,
right,
and then there's, I believe, two vehicles.
2 vehicles
Yeah.
for the other one, that's what I was thinking.
We'll take a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second.
Is it this one? All right.
Go ahead and call it roll.
Okay, and so this is a motion to approve the additional list of disbursements that was sent before you, the extra one page related to leases. And so, Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to go back and figure that out. I have to admit, Cindy probably would have recognized the GL account number, but I'm not to that point yet. Mr. Chair, to your suggestion earlier, you want me to move down a little bit to the ARPA grant program, 9B. And this is kind of updates, and then see if you want to move forward with anything or ask us to get any additional information. And so, as you know, the ARPA program, of course, is kind of the second round of effectively CARES money. It's slightly different funding, and we received that we received half of it, which was right around $1.5 million, which was deposited in Skyline Bank. And then we'll get a second tranche later. And so, as you recall, you initially approved expenditure of 3 sets of funds. 2 of those we took care of very quickly, which was the sheriff's and I'm trying to remember giving it. Oh, the VATI grant match. So the $100,000 to match the VATI grant. And so that was taken care of. Both of those were taken care of very quickly. The PSA, we required a little bit more extensive agreement with them just because of the size and complexity. And so that agreement was completed by Mr. Durbin. And so that agreement, I signed the agreement, and the check has been cut and everything's been provided to the PSA. They haven't picked it up. Okay, Kim says, sorry, since I was gone last week, I assumed they picked it up.
They did not.
They have not picked it up yet, so, but it is ready.
That will change.
Yeah, indeed. I do want to say, though, thank you so much for that kind of, paper trail is not the right word, but just the documentation is so important, especially when dealing with this kind of money and, you know, that is going to an authority and that specific jobs are being done. I just really, really appreciated that. Thank you. And that's as a supervisor, not just as somebody that sits on the PSA. From this board, it's so important that we can track things like that. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And to be fair to the PSA too, of course, you recognize the difference in treatment, say the extra funding that's given to the sheriff's office, right, that still runs through our office. Where the PSA is, we wrote them a check for $750,000.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit different situation where we don't have the same level of control. So that's why there's a more extensive agreement related to that. I had hoped to have an additional grant application for you related to some improvements at the rec park. I did get an initial draft, but the more we looked at it and I looked at the requirements, we need to, I got some verbiage from some of our other communities that are using their ARPA funds to purchase playground and other similar equipment. We need to go back and make some changes to make sure our purchases and our paperwork, to your point, Ms. Kirk, complies with the requirement. So we will get that back to you post haste, but apologies, but I thought we needed to get it cleaned up a little bit. The thought is on the grant application, however, is to replace and expand. We have to be really careful in looking at the requirements that we're not using that funding to repair. So it has to be something that makes it newer, better, all related to outdoor activity and public health. And
there's no doubt that will be able to be done.
Oh, yes.
so, and we've been looking at some different types of playground equipment and materials, and so, you know, at some point we might want, before we move forward with this, also have some conversation with you all about thoughts about if you have particular thoughts about, other than it looking nice and not something we'd be proud of when other teams or other folks come, if you have any particular thoughts about what type of equipment you would like up there. We have some community members that have shared some thoughts as well. Would you prefer something that looks, I don't know, more plasticky, more metal, more rustic? And I don't know if people have strong opinions, but if people have thoughts about that, I'd love to hear them as we're starting to look at different sets. Because the variance on cost for a playground set to go up there is somewhere between, looking at just some of the quote, well, not quotes, we've also waiting for a quote from people to put what's in there. But in terms of what's just available to look at off the internet, the variance can be anywhere from about $30,000 to at least $100,000 plus.
I think safety and maintenance, especially the maintenance part and especially the safety part, those two, there's a lot of things that comes into it, but I think those two things really need to be looked at.
In addition, you mentioned to it, I'm not sure how far you guys are into this, but so maybe a simple survey, like using SurveyMonkey or something, and putting it out on the rec department's website to include parents of that age group that we're trying to focus on. I think in addition to maintenance and safety, it's going to be the biggest thing we need to try to target, is what the community's thoughts would be on that for that. Maybe a survey, if you could restrict it to a certain age group that would be, likely to use it, whatever direction you guys are looking at.
Folks with children between the ages of 4 or 3 and
whatever the target is.
And also, instead of the wood chips, I have seen playgrounds that, and I don't know what it is, it's somebody smarter than me, but it's like a rubberized
shredded tires.
It's shredded tires is what it is, yeah.
But they're held together some way. I mean, it's like, it's not just loose tire chips.
There's both, I think.
But you remember, you used to, in a lot of your church basements, you go in, they had the cement, it was painted and had the chip. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, yes.
The connected, but it's cushioned. I mean,
I'm familiar with what that is, and you're right, it's a rubber tire mats out of.
That would be something to look at as well.
Yep.
I think it would fall into that.
And that would be aesthetic and improvement and health Yes, I agree.
And
Yes,
the maintenance on it is very low.
absolutely.
Now, it's more expensive when you do have to change it, but
I know one fella a couple of years ago, his little girl was up there, got one of them wood chips in her foot, and it got infected.
Oh.
So they ended up with a pretty good doctor bill. So, I know after wood chips for little kids.
Yeah,
But either side, whether it's the little one or the big one, I think looking at that rubber out, it's cushioned and now it does get warm in the sunlight. There are other things.
Yeah.
There's action, there's a reaction.
Well, I would prefer there not be anybody up there running around barefooted anyway, so maybe that would be, maybe that's a built-in mechanism there. It's hot, wear your shoes.
Yeah. I think you have the database with registrations, for those age groups to target. Maybe just, that would be enough for each, send that invite out to their parents. Let's see what the parents have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you would fall in that group too.
Well,
I mean, no, but I mean.
yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Just
do.
try to- I was thinking maybe too broad, just posting it out there. But really, I think need to get the feedback of the parents and a great database for that's registrations.
Well, they're already using it.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they are.
So you can send it out, they can reply back, give them data, we'll see what they think for the
Yep.
different vision for the ages of facilities. I think would be wise for us to try to come up and say, hey, this is what this age group may want. See what they say.
That's a great idea. And to follow up on that, would it, we could also set it up if you'd like, that they could also forward it. So, for instance, the other group that I know uses the park a lot, homeschoolers. I don't have a great list of homeschoolers. Somebody might, but I don't. But if, they know folks, then maybe they can share it among friends who have similar age children.
I'm sure we get all kinds of preschools, Floyd Baptist and Calvary Baptist Church and Milestone. So
If you could,
we really need to get their knowledge.
Schools.
Yeah, we need to see what they think.
Maybe get their copies of something to hand out to the parents.
Go here and do the survey for children for it. No, or what I'm kind of, but whatever they do.
Yeah.
We can take and pull that, and we might not be able to give them exactly what they asked for, but we can at least get as close
That's
as
right,
we
it
can.
gives us a place to start.
At least they know you're listening to them and trying.
yeah,
It is
absolutely.
the county's facility, so taxpayers need to have say.
Just the public.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I might, this takes us just a little off track into something else, but we were up there yesterday, as I mentioned, working on the outdoor classroom location. And so some of the things that came up in that was also kind of a survey of parents and, whether it's what we build with the current funding we have for the outdoor classroom, or as was pointed out to me and kind of in my experience, if you do well with those forestry grants, they are often willing to entertain you for funding the following year. So even though they're pretty small grants, like $10,000, $15,000, you start doing that over and over. So, potentially if something good comes out of the survey that doesn't necessarily get funded right away, that could give us a blueprint for future applications.
Yeah, absolutely.
And would also help build our score, candidly, because having a community survey of needs helps push your score up on those forestry grants.
Yeah.
Appreciate the idea.
Yeah, excellent.
Very helpful. So,
You have a couple of things, potential anticipated applications from our notebook. Have we gotten those?
you have the tourism one, and I think it's the Plenty folks and the tourism folks, and then of course the constitutional officers are the folks that have been bringing questions up to us. The other things that are in there that were anticipated and haven't come forward, one was looking at HVAC for this building and maybe some of the other buildings. We were kind of holding off on that until some other decisions were made about property. And also wanted to make sure, now that we've changed Mark's role a little bit, that he felt like we were going the right direction. So I think we're going to start moving forward with the conversation with some of the folks that we currently use about what our needs might be. So that, I guess, it's a long answer, Ms. Pickup, to that one. We don't have an application for yet, but we anticipate now that we've had some staffing changes that we'll do that. And then,
What about the EMS one?
well, I think, as I recall, where we had left that, and I may be mistaken about that, is that you all had instructed us to go ahead and move forward with making the changes in scheduling and taking funds out of what we have currently, and then kind of see where we end up. And if we end up needing to do that, then we would. And I think the only other thing that I recall being on that list was a suggestion that social services and I had about maybe buying some like picnic tables and heaters and things to better utilize that space on the carport of the maintenance building. So social services could potentially use that space for some supervised visits where folks could be outside if that was important to them for health reasons. And so, but that also fell into a little bit of the other conversations about property, but we can certainly put that together. And I will tell you, Chad has been exceptionally good to work with. But they were definitely always asking me about space for supervised visits and visits with children and family members. So again, kind of as a side note to this, he's going to actually be spending a little bit of their money to do some furniture upgrades and put some kids' things in the Carillion room, and has actually asked about if they could have someone do a child-friendly mural in there. They donated to make it more kid-friendly, because you know we were potentially going to be using that space more for meetings in general, given that we'll probably be capturing this space pretty quick for office. But that's just something we've discussed, but I've not said anything yes or no about a mural. Just said that sounds great. We'll see where everything ends up. If you got a name of somebody who could do a great job, hold on to it.
Can we maybe consider taking up some of the requests we have received, like with the courts, clerks?
So I was thinking,
Try to get some of these that we can act on out of the way. With respect, I say that, I mean out of the way, but you know, if people out there's requested needs, we can meet those needs, let's take action and get it out.
I agree.
I guess I have a question on, as far as courts, is I would hesitate to do them without doing some of the other offices, like treasurers and some of the other offices in the courthouse. Well, I'm just curious for perception, for your perspective or somebody else's perspective on.
The only thing is the amount of the very large burden that they incurred due to the executive order on postponement of trials, the amount of summonses that went out, the amount of subpoenas that went out, they're having to facilitate with their office, the Criminal Attorney's Office, the defense attorneys to coordinate trial dates. Those things were very extensive, and then reschedule again because of scheduling issues, the eviction issues, man alive, that really, so I wholeheartedly understand what you're saying, but I think, you know, with this pandemic, it did, there was some costs that were incurred by agencies that were perhaps a little bit more than others. When you deal with certain situations, it can be more difficult, and I feel like as it's been articulated, have felt a lot of that, and I felt like support, you know, has been requested from them. If that helps answer your question.
I guess, I mean, there hasn't been a request from anyone else, so that we can't really consider it without a request, but if we did, on this request, I guess maybe the one thing I would ask is that if some of the other offices did request that we would also
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't come up with something.
Yeah, I forgot mine.
Could you, the request, are they, my understanding, you can look and tell me. My understanding was that it was not necessarily a request to recoup all his expenses as much as it was an additional amount for the employees. Am I wrong?
It's in the following pages, sir.
Yeah. We would pay there, and then,
Under the yellow, you know the actual,
this is, you got the combined courts, and then, are you talking about the
And
most
then the rest
person?
of them,
I really thought we did.
it's in the yellow section. It just shows you everything that had happened to them.
So that's the compensation piece.
Well, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
See, as far as recouping the actual office expense, I have no doubt if you're qualified, you should definitely do that for any office.
Right?
Now, if we're talking about
Hazard pay?
hazard pay or bonuses or whatever, then I'm kind of on that part, I'm kind of with him. I think we need to be equal across the board.
If we get a request, but we haven't. We got 2 requests currently.
Well, no, I understand, I'm just saying to be prepared.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
If the others send in a request similar to this, I want to be prepared to do the same thing for them. I want to treat everybody equally. I guess that's
You
my,
understand.
yeah.
We just had better courts come before us now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we should take action on it.
Yes, and I need to, also let you know, I can't remember if I updated you in an email, so what you have in the book, of course, is from the combined courts, and then, of course, Rhonda, who was just here, put in a request as well. She, wrote and asked that, she would like to remove herself from the report.
Right, I remember seeing
So I just
that.
wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Just, if we keep that same, trying to be equal, I remember there was another agency who wanted to keep himself excluded as well, and the board chose not to do that. I think the full amount requested was awarded a couple, 3 years ago, I believe.
So right now, the request for what Rhonda came before us and the other situations is $22,400, is that correct?
The 22, Mr. Chair, comment, the amount for, the combined court was 22,000, and then there's that's just hers, and then Rhonda's was, I believe, a different amount, and that's what I was just, now that I put this on here, I realize I don't have a copy of Rhonda's.
Maybe we can get that, I think. Are we ready to go close?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get those titles, maybe we can take action after we.
Yeah, get them broke down. I agree, we need to do something. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Lauren.
Just be over here, please.
I just didn't know if there's somebody waiting.
So I guess I'll take a motion to go into closed session under 214-37, 11, A1, A3, A5, and A29.
Does that include what you needed as well?
Yeah, I think A1 and A5, it's not under the same description of A5. A5, it has a individual description. Well, this would be just in reference to the new business. I'll read the actual.
Got it pulled up here.
Discussion concerning perfected business or industry or expansion of existing business industry. There previous announcements been made of the business industry's interest in locating and expanding facilities in the community.
So moved if you're ready.
Second.
I think I need to clarify what we're going in there for. Discussion, consideration, interviews of prospective candidates, disposition of appropriate health property, and discussion of ag and forestry industrial development, faculties, grants, and prospective existing businesses, and contract negotiations with a company regarding county-owned property. So I have a motion to second, and call the roll.
All right, so this is on your motion to move to closed session under 2.2-3711A1, A3, A5, and A29. Motion, Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Ms. Pickerel?
Yes.
Mr.